Well, we've been doing the series of the month of February. It's called Real or Real Relationships, exploring authentic relationships. And today we're going to talk about our work relationships. Early in my career, I had to make a difficult choice to stand with integrity. And in the end, it became very clear that my path had meant me to lead to a different place of work. That was a difficult decision, a difficult moment. But I learned something very valuable in that moment. Integrity does not always lead us to an easy outcome, but it always leads us to the right outcome. So looking back, I can see how God used that in my life. He shaped me, He deepened my character, and even sharpened me for responsibilities, greater responsibilities later down the road. I think we all face decisions like that in our work lives, where you have to make a decision to decide to do the right thing, knowing that it's going to cost you something. It may, if you stand with integrity, it may cost you that high-profile team, that being placed on that high-profile team, or it may cost you promotion, it may cost you a pay raise, or it may cost you just open hostility. We all feel that tension between doing excellent work and then standing firm in our convictions. The story we're going to read today is a very, very familiar story for those of you who've been around church or grown up in church. It's a classic children's Bible story. But I think there's more to that than just this children's Bible story. And as our conversation today, I hope the story, you'll look at it maybe in a different light. And it's a story of Daniel in the lion's den. Now, I'm going to ask a question. How old, when you think of Daniel in the lion's den, how old do you think Daniel was when he was put into the lion's den? How many of you, show of hands, how many of you think he was in his 20s? Okay. How many of you think he was in his 40s? Okay. How many of you think he was in his 60s? Okay. How many of you think he was in his 80s? Okay. We got a smattering of few everywhere. All right. I'll reveal it here in just a second. You know whether you're right. But Daniel, as a young man, he was one of the thousands, him and his friends, that incurred this forced displacement by the Babylonian Empire. In 605 BC, Babylonian just sacks Israel. They take all of the Hebrew people and they take them back to Babylon. Now, Babylon has this huge empire, has this huge bureaucracy. It's just ever expanding. And as a young man, Daniel and his friends were groomed to be part of that government. They were going to be government employees. Ultimately, Daniel does become a government employee. In fact, he serves 3 different Babylonian kings. And then later, after the Babylonians, we'll see the Medes and the Persians conquer the Babylonians, he serves 2 Medes and Persian kings. So Daniel, believe it or not, he's in his 80s when this event takes place. He's in his 80s. So as we read at the end of chapter 5 of Daniel, we see that Darius is the king of the Medes and the Persians. And he is the ruler. And he's 62 years old when he takes over. And you might want to call this, in the workplace, a hostile takeover. But that's what he does. And then Darius gets real quickly of reorganizing the government administration. So let's turn in your Bible or favorite electronic device to Daniel chapter 6. Daniel chapter 6. We'll begin in verse 1. It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 satraps, to be throughout the whole kingdom, and over them 3 high officials, of whom Daniel was one, to whom these satraps should give an account, so that the king might suffer no loss. Then this Daniel became distinguished above all the other high officials and satraps because an excellent spirit was in him. And the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. Then the high officials and the satraps sought and found ground for complaint against Daniel with regard to the kingdom, but they could not find no ground for complaint or any fault because he was faithful, and no error or fault was found in him. Then these men said, "We shall not find any ground or complaint against this Daniel unless we find it in the connection with the law of his God." Then these high officials and satraps came by agreement to the king and said, "O King Darius, live forever." All the high officials of the kingdom, the prefects and the satraps and the counselors and the governors agreed that the king should establish an ordinance and enforce an injunction that whoever makes petition to any god or any man for 30 days, except to you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions. Now, O king, establish the injunction and sign the document so that it cannot be changed according to the law of the Medes and the Persians, which cannot be revoked. Therefore, King Darius signed the document and injunction. When Daniel knew the document had been signed, he went to his house where he had windows in his upper chamber open toward Jerusalem. He got down on his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God as he had done previously. The first thing that we see in this story is that excellence attracts attention, sometimes good attention, like from King Darius, and sometimes the not so good attention that Daniel attracts. But he distinguished himself. As you can imagine, Darius has already a set of loyal advisors. And as they're expecting something as some payback in this new kingdom, they're looking for new positions. They're looking for new places of power in this newly expanded kingdom. I mean, the Babylonian officials that were there, they are the losing party. You know, they'll be lucky to find a job in the administration. But Daniel, he has this superior knowledge. He has this insight to civil affairs and to governance, and he shows exceptional skill and dedication to the responsibilities. You also see there's this sense of divine favor upon Daniel, empowering him. Now, Scripture doesn't tell us how Darius was acquainted with Daniel. I mean, Daniel was a high-ranking official in the vast Babylonian empire. And I think he would have been a valuable asset to any organization as they're seeking to understand the Babylonian systems and seeking the Mede and Persian system and how they integrate and how they would move together. His insight would have been valuable to have. Darius was extremely impressed with Daniel. In fact, what his idea was that, hey, I'm just going to be the king, and I'm going to let Daniel actually be the prime minister. He's actually going to do all of the ruling. He's going to make, but that didn't sit too well with some people. So we see integrity invites opposition. So what the officials do, they effectively hire private investigators. They are trying to create a dossier. So they scrutinize everything in Daniel's life over 4 decades. I mean, they're looking for any misconduct, any kickbacks, shady deals, indiscretions, anything that they can find to put in this dossier. But Daniel, he handled his duties in a very trustworthy manner. He did not neglect his responsibility. He was a man of integrity. And there's just one note in this dossier that says he has this little thing that he does. It's with his God. So, how did they know? How did they know? I don't think he hid the fact that he was Jewish. I don't think that he hid the fact that he prayed to Yahweh, the one true God. He was not a closet worshiper, but he openly, unashamedly worships the Lord and knows, and his allegiance stayed to the God of Israel. So, knowing that, they devise a plan to basically murder Daniel, and they enlist the king's help. They go up to present their plan in this group. In the First Testament, the original language there is that they go up in harmony and symphony, all together. They're all together in this. to pull off this conspiracy. Suspiciously, Daniel is not with them. Gee, I wonder why he's not present. And they propose that no one should pray to anyone else, no God, nor man, except to the king for the next 30 days. And they elevate the importance of this law, suggesting that the ultimate sentence was death by lions, be thrown into the lions' dens. Now, sometimes I think we can make the characters of the Bible pretty one-dimensional. And we can easily characterize Darius as this narcissistic, egocentric maniac that all he thinks is about himself. And of course, all the court officials, all I had to do was kind of kindly suggest to him that, yeah, that sounds good. Oh, yeah, I'll sign that. That's of course that's what I'm going to do. But I think that we need to remember that Darius is 62 years old. He's seen a thing or two. He is a leader. He's proven to be a great leader. He's known for centralizing the empire's administration and government. He's known for standardizing their weights, their measurements, their currency. He has improved the infrastructure of the kingdom with roadworks. He is overseeing major construction projects within the country. He's been around a little bit. And he's probably thinking, what are some ways that I can unite my subjects in this merger? And his advisors present to him this idea to unify the kingdoms. I think he has to seriously consider it. Now, this is not really a new idea. When you think about it, you have the Egyptians, the Babylonians, and later even the Romans. Sometime throughout the period of their history, of their empires, every one of those empires, they felt like that their king was God. So this is really not a new idea. And he's thinking, what can I do? How can I have a singular focus to bring allegiance to his kingdom? Now, do they play to his vanity? Yes. But if he has any self-awareness of all, I think he understands exactly what's taking place. And the focus is to consolidate power, to ensure stability. Why not play God for 30 days? Maybe I'll find out a little bit more about my subjects. I'll find out a little bit more about who's loyal to me in this process. Why? Yeah, why not? Where do I need to sign? So King Darius signs. Now, we can say, looking at hindsight, that, he was a little naive, wasn't he? He doesn't fully grasp the implications of this decree. He's trusting his advisors who want to honor him. He doesn't fully understand that the plot was specifically designed at trapping Daniel. The next thing that we learn is conviction requires courage. What does Daniel do? What does he do? Knowing that this new law has gone into effect, does what he does every day. He prays. And he probably prayed 3 times a day. He probably prayed the evening, the morning, and at noon. And what he does, he opens up his windows. And he faces towards Jerusalem, towards the east. And he prays for the shalom, the peace of Jerusalem, for peace of Israel. That's what he's been doing for decades. He doesn't change it. He could have easily said, God, can we work this thing out? I'll just close my windows. Nobody will know. No, he doesn't do that. He doesn't say, he doesn't go out of the city for the next 30 days, so nobody can track where he's going at. He's a high of ranking official. He can have gone anywhere in the kingdom and done that. But he doesn't do that. I really don't know what's going through Daniel's mind, but his resolution is still the same. Daniel in his 80s is still as resolute as he was in his teens. He trusted God. I would like to think that Daniel, as he reflected and thought and looked out and looked towards Jerusalem, he thought of all the times that God had empowered him, given him discernment and wisdom as he advised those, as he governed. He may reflect upon the great blessings that the Lord had bestowed upon him. Or he may have thought, well, God, you and I, we've had a great run. I'm tired. I'm ready. I'm ready to go home, come see you. He may have thought that. But Daniel continues to trust God as he does in his youth. And he determines to explicitly and exclusively trust Yahweh no matter the cost, no matter what came next. Now, Daniel, he's very astute too. He probably knows why this law was made into effect. He knows what's happening. He is not without knowledge of that. Now, Daniel's enemies, at the earliest convenience, what do? They settled up to King Darius and said, hey, King Darius, you remember that law that you passed? Are you going to keep your word? The one that if you don't pray to any god or any man, they're going to be thrown into the lion's den? And Darius says, yes, according to the laws of the Medes and the Persians, yes, I have to do that. It's a constitutional monarchy. Yes, I have to do that. I have to abide that. Even as the monarch, I have to abide by the law. So they kind of wondered out loud, well, is he going to do it or not? And then the advisors, they reveal the trap. Did you know that there's an exile from Judah who prays 3 times a day to their God? Darius, didn't you say? Not to any god or man, but only to you? The trap has been sprung. Oh, by the way, Darius, it's Daniel. It's Daniel. As you read the story, King Darius becomes greatly distressed. He is mad at himself, for he knows he has been duped. He knows he has been trapped. He knows he's been used in this elaborate scheme to get rid of an honest man. Now, he tries to call in his lawyers, and they try to figure out a way to maybe find a loophole, a workaround, some way that he would not have to enact and enforce this law. But sadly, at the end of the day, he wasn't able to do that. He had no choice but to follow through with his decree and throw Daniel into the lion's den. And as you read the story, you get a sense that Darius is genuinely concerned for Daniel. That Daniel was this exemplary person. You can almost imagine Daniel as he walks into a meeting room and everybody's buzzing and everything, things just go quiet. And then as the meeting goes along and different people are making different presentations, people are watching Daniel for his facial expressions, any body clues that they can see about what is being presented. And then when Daniel speaks, he speaks with such wisdom and clarity that they're thinking, oh, yeah, that's right. That's the way it should be. Of course. And then they're thinking to themselves, well, that's so simple. Why did I think of that? But that is the kind of person that Daniel was. And then we see in the scriptures that Darius, he experiences a restless night. He fasts. He doesn't have any food. He doesn't have any entertainment that evening. And he rises up early in the morning to return to the den of the lions. We pick the verse up in 19. Then at break of day, the king arose and went in haste to the den of lions. As he came near to the den where Daniel was, he cried out in a tone of anguish. The king declared to Daniel, "O Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to deliver you from the lions?" Then Daniel said to the king, "O king, live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, and they have not harmed me, because I was found blameless before you and also before you, O king. I have done no harm. Then the king was exceedingly glad and commanded that Daniel be taken up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no kind of harm was found on him, because he had trusted in his God. The king cries out to Daniel in the lion's den, and he's like this anguish for Daniel's well-being. And I almost think there's some astonishment when Darius hears, oh, what? Daniel, can you repeat that? Oh, Daniel is vindicated. He was found blameless before God. And he was also found blameless for any wrongdoing against the king. In fact, Daniel, what he's telling the king, he says, I love God and I have trusted God, and that is true. But I also have served you well and been loyal to you, and that is true. And both of those things can be true at the same time. And that's what Daniel's saying to his king. Daniel was quickly drawn up out of the lion's den. He was given like a cursory medical exam, and he was found that he was unscathed. And the last thing I think we learned from the story is faithfulness impacts others. Faithfulness impacts others. Then King Darius wrote to all the peoples, the nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied to you. I make a decree that all my royal dominion people are to tremble and fear before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, enduring forever. His kingdom shall never be destroyed, and his dominion shall be to the end. He delivers, he rescues, he works signs and wonders in heaven and earth. He who has saved Daniel from the power of the lion's den. We see in those verses that Daniel's testimony, his stand for integrity, impacted not only the king's life, but the entire kingdom. Your faithfulness influences others. Your picture of consistent character influences your work relationships. And here's the big idea I want you to come away with today. Faithfulness in the workplace is your greatest witness. Faithfulness in the workplace is your greatest witness. Have you ever faced a moment at work where your integrity was tested? Maybe you felt pressure to cut corners. Maybe you felt pressure to stay silent about a wrongdoing. Maybe you felt pressure to compromise on your values. Or perhaps like Daniel, you did the right thing and you still faced the consequences. Maybe you were overlooked, maybe you were criticized, maybe you were even let go. The reality we live in this broken world, living with integrity, is not easy and is not always rewarded. But Daniel's story reminds us that integrity is not some short-term success. It's all about long-term faithfulness. And just like Daniel, you are called to be faithful, even when it's going to cost you. And the good news is that you don't have to do it alone. Jesus, he is the true and greater Daniel. Jesus was falsely accused. He was unjustly condemned, and yet he remained faithful, even to the death on the cross. And because of his resurrection, we can trust that God will ultimately vindicate those who are for him. So we need to ask ourselves, in relationship to our conversation this morning, where is God calling you to be faithful in your workplace? Are you willing to trust him even when doing the right thing costs you? Let me just say, this is going to make a side note. If you don't make that decision ahead of time in the crisis of the moment, you will more than likely make the wrong decision. So make that decision ahead of time. Now, lastly, do you see your job as a paycheck or as a place where you can reflect Christ? As a community of believers here at Chesterfield Community Church, we are not just employees. We're not just managers. We're not just business owners. We are sent missionaries. We go into every classroom. We go into every office. We go into every job site. And we choose integrity. Not when we choose integrity just because it's a moral decision, but we are making a gospel statement that we're going to trust in God, who is bigger than all our careers. Like Daniel, you might find yourself in a lion's den of injustice. You might find yourself embroiled in the workplace politics, or you might find yourself in financial insecurity. But we serve a God who shuts the mouths of lions. And even if the outcome isn't what we expect, if we keep our job or lose it, whether we're promoted or whether we're passed over, we can trust in someone far greater. That's Jesus Christ. He is our true deliverer. He faced the ultimate trial on our behalf. He conquered sin and death. So as we go about our work this week, let's live as people who trust that God is in control. He's in control of our work. He's in control of our reputation, and he's in control of our future. Let's be people whose faithfulness at work point others to Jesus. Just encourage you, if you've never placed your faith and trust in Jesus, he entered the ultimate lion's den for you. He took the punishment that you deserved, but yet he rose again that give you new life. No job, no paycheck, no title, no promotion. Nothing can compare to what Christ freely gives to you. He gives you freedom, he gives you security, and he gives you eternal hope. Will you trust him today? We're going to sing a song. I don't know where this hits with you today. We're going to have, maybe you're dealing with something else. Maybe some other relationships. Maybe you have some other burdens. You want someone to pray with you. We'll have our prayer team over here and encourage you. But if you are still thinking about it, contemplating about what it means to be a follower of Jesus, see myself, see Colin. We'd love to share with you how you can do that. Well, let's pray.